The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, celebrating KPTS's nearly 50 years of community support in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you.
This is where the personalities and power players come to share their stories and life lessons. On this edition of One-on-One, we welcome a Kansas business legend. He is putting his money where his heart is, sharing his fortune with the less fortunate. Jack DeBoer began selling real estate while he was still in high school. After earning a business degree from Michigan State University and serving in the military for 2 years, he began building houses with his father. DeBoer transitioned into apartment buildings a few years later, and by 1973, he was the second largest developer of multifamily housing in the nation. Then in 1975, DeBoer invented a concept in Wichita that would make him known around the world and make him very successful. Learn about that and how Jack DeBoer is sharing his success and drawing attention to a humanitarian crisis on the other side of the world. This should be fascinating, and it all starts right now, One-on-One. Thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom, pleased to welcome renowned real estate developer Jack DeBoer to the program. Mr. DeBoer, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about this exciting project that you're involved in another country, Myanmar. But first, we'd like to know a little bit more about you, the person, the man who came from Michigan to Wichita and made Wichita his home. So let's begin by you telling us where, first of all, did you get? Why did you come to Wichita?
Well, I was building apartments around the country, came to Wichita, and because I like airplanes, Wichita was the air capital. I met a lot of people who knew about airplanes, and Wichita's got the best, friendliest, most honest people that I'd ever met, so we moved.
And you stayed?
50 years we've been here.
50 years. And you have a very keen sense for business. How did you develop that?
Well, it's interesting. I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
And, you know, entrepreneurs are people who think everything's going to be swell and just keep working till it is.
Right.
And so I've just always been, I've never had a job. I've never worked for anybody. That's not quite true. In a dorm at Michigan State, I worked in a evening kind of a malted milk bar, and I got fired. I was only there 2 days, and I never had another job ever in my life. So that's worked out well.
Well, that is remarkable, because you've been on your own since then, I take it.
Yep. And even before then, because that's the only job. Well, I was in the military, and of course, that was kind of a job.
It was. When you were growing up, what was your dream as a child? What did you want to become?
When I was very young, because I was already kind of airplane crazy, I wanted to be a doctor with a series of medical clinics that I could fly from one to the other. That's when I was, 8 years old.
And what changed that?
Well, life has turns, and I kept the aviation part, but I didn't take the medical part.
And so, how do you define success as an entrepreneur, a businessman?
That's interesting. Success has 1,000 definitions. Often we put focus on it being the amount of money that you make. If you make a lot of money, you're successful. I don't think so. I think success is the ability to look at what you've done, sit down quietly by yourself, and be proud of what you did. That's success.
You got involved in real estate very early. You came here, you said, to build apartments, and because this was the air capital of the world. What brought that real estate thought to your mind? How did you get started with this hope? Because real estate requires money. And if you didn't have a job working for others to probably save any money, how did it all happen?
Well, my father was in the real estate business, and I started selling real estate, single-family homes. Went from there to building with my father single-family homes. My father died very young, and so then I built single-family homes and went from there to building an apartment and thought that was kind of fun. And so I branched out and started building in other places. And I built apartments for a lot of years before I went in the hotel business.
And you are the inventor, so to speak, of the extended stay
Yes.
hotels. Where did that inspiration come from?
Well, you know, I wanted to be in the hotel business, and I was in the apartment business, and it was very difficult. Interest rates were double-digit, and it was very difficult to make money in the apartment business. And I thought, well, if I could take the product that I have that's an apartment and get hotel rent, then it could be a business. So the Residence Inn, which was in downtown Wichita, became the first extended stay hotel. And it worked. It became a new brand, and today there are, you know, a couple 100,000 extended stay rooms in the country.
So you founded 5 hotel chains in all. Tell us about the evolution of those chains.
Well, Residence Inn was first. Mm-hmm. It was originally called The Residence. We didn't do anything that was hotel. It was downtown Wichita. Still own it. It's a hotel at Waterwalk today. I've owned it since, 35 years. And it just morphed from there, where I said, you know, if we can have apartment costs and get hotel rates, we can make some money. Mm-hmm. It worked.
So along the way, Mr. DeBoer, it wasn't all easy.
No, nothing's easy.
You reached in, I think it's about 1970, or in the 70s, you reached a low point in your career, in your life. And we had Susan Peters on this program, mm-hmm. Who shared with us a story of failure on your part. Would you elaborate on that?
Sure. I had built about 16,000 garden apartments around the country. I was the second largest apartment builder in the country, and oh, how I wanted to be first. I wasn't driven by the money. I was driven by the fact that I wanted to be known as the largest apartment builder in the country, which is a lousy reason for being in business. And but I wasn't. I was the second. And so I was only interested in how many more projects we could get underway in a year so I could catch up. And that turned out to be 16,000, but it wasn't enough. And then in 1970, it's an interesting story, the Singer Company wanted to buy my company, and they were willing to pay $100 million. And I owned 95% of it. The other part belonged to the Ford Foundation, who was doing a lot of the financing. But I knew a guy that had gotten $100 million for his company, and I wanted more, so that I didn't go to another meeting and have him say, there's Jack DeBoer. He got $100 million too. And I turned it down. And about a year and a half later, I was broke. I had to evaluate what's important. And having a strong balance sheet and having money ain't on that list. Well, I didn't have any money, but I had a family. I hadn't cheated and lied with people. I had a great wife. I had respect of my friends, but I didn't have any money. And after a couple of days of laying in bed and trying to figure out what I was going to do, I decided that those are the real assets in life. So I set the ego aside. I've never put my name on a company since then. And we started the second phase, which I call economic success. And after 5 years, I paid everybody back. And today, and over the years of success, I did business with all the same people because I had those assets that are not money.
Right. So you had the first set of businesses, and you got into trouble. Mm-hmm. And how did you turn it around?
Well,
to continue, and how did you build that courage? And
that's where it's important who you are, not what you have. I didn't have anything, but I didn't lie to people. I worked hard. My attitude had been improved. I wasn't in it for the ego. And, people are anxious to deal with good people.
Right.
So I was able to do business with the same people. I paid them back over the years by selling properties, and it took 5 years. And then at the end I said, okay, now what? And I built what became the Residence Inn in downtown Wichita.
So the first set of sales, you based them on ego.
Absolutely.
And now the second set of sales that you made, no ego.
None. Ashamed of it. I still am today.
So what have you learned from it all?
Well, I think the title of my book, Risk Only Money, is a big one. If you list the things that are important in your life.
And this is a book you wrote about 3-4 years ago.
Right.
Right.
And everybody says, well, I got to have money. No, you don't have to have money. You have to have all these other assets. And if you're willing to work and you get a decent education, surround yourself with the right people, treat other people like you'd like to be treated yourself, good things happen.
So as you were going through those challenging times, how did your wife Marilyn react to it all?
Well, I got lucky. We've been married 65 years now.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulate her, not me. and so, but, I just got lucky and had a wife that, supported me. I didn't even know I had kids until I got my act together.
Boy.
We had two. I was too busy.
Right.
My parents said, your job is to work hard and get money and take care of your family, and your wife's job is to take care of the family and raise the children. And I said, okay. So I went to work, and she went to work, and turned out just fine. And but now I'm a lot better father and grandfather than I was.
Now, you enjoy flying, and it's appropriate that you live in the air capital of the world.
You bet.
Because you also hold a world speed record for small jet aircraft.
I do.
Tell us about that.
Well, I've been involved in air racing during that time for about 30 years, and I had a Learjet. And so I decided that the Lear 31 was an airplane that could win the 5-kilometer race. And so I went to Learjet, and they told me how fast over the red line I could fly the airplane before they would have to take it apart. And they put a test pilot in the right seat, and we went out and set the record. And it's been tried to break it's jets under 18,000 pounds. And they've tried to break the record a couple of times, and I still hold it, and that's kind of neat. And that and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee at most places except Starbucks.
But you're so competitive, so
Sure.
You must be proud of that record.
I'm glad, yeah. Scott Crossfield at the Museum of Aviation gave me the record at a big ceremony, but didn't have anything to do with my name. not at all.
In 1988, you and your wife, Marilyn, decided to fly around the world to visit several countries, and you visited 38 countries.
Right.
But there was one country that did not want people going into it, Myanmar.
That's right.
Burma,
Called Burma.
Myanmar today. But you happened to enter that country. How did that happen?
Well, it was an interesting. It was after I sold Residence Inn, and Marriott took it over. And I thought, gee, I'm going to someday be able to tell people I never had a job. So the day they took it over, I quit. And I went home and I said to my wife at about 11:30, well, I don't have a job. And here I am. We got to figure out what we're going to do. And she said, you know, I married you for life and love, but I didn't marry you for lunch. So I said, and so we sat down and thought, what do you want to do? And so we spent a year figuring out what we wanted to know about the world and countries. And so in April of 1988, we took off in our Gulfstream II from Wichita and spent 4 months. During that time, our lives changed. And we went to Burma because it was closed, and I'm not one to take no for an answer very easily. And so we were successful in getting in. But less than 24 hours, we escaped the country. Then we came home from that trip where we learned that what the world really needs is not, and they need all these things, but it's not food, it's not shelter, it's not drugs, it's hope. It's hope, wherever we were. And Burma was the place that had no. And a quick story, we got back and we said, now what? So he said, well, I'll tell you what, let's have a dinner and we'll invite 10 couples, turned out to be 9, and we'll give them a travelogue of what we've done. We did that. And I said, we won't invite our friends. We'll invite line worker from Boeing, banker, minister, doctor and his wife, and these people who we didn't know. And we had a dinner and we showed them a bunch of the video that we had taken. And at that meeting was the Frank Kick, who was the minister of Presbyterian Church out on the east side, down the road from us, but we'd never met. Frank and Phyllis were there. He called me up the next day and he said, it's amazing, but the president of World Vision, Bob Seipel at the time, World Vision is the largest Christian-based charitable organization on the planet and have been since it was founded during the Korean War. And said Bob Seipel is going to be in Wichita and he'd like to have lunch. I said, great. So we had lunch with Bob. And Bob said, what do you want to do? And we said, we don't know. So we went and we learned more. We traveled with them to Guatemala and looked at some of the things they're doing. And they said, now what do you want to do? And we said, well, we want to take on a country. And they said, you want to do what? I want to take on a country. And well, what country do you have in mind? And we said, Burma. Because there we really had things change. We escaped. It's an incredible story how we got out of the country. We had our own airplane there, and Maryland was convinced they were going to confiscate it. And, you know, it was very tough. A lot of military and guns and everything. And so he said, okay. So we went to Burma with World Vision, and that's where the story began. And we've been back there now 13 times. And our foundation has made an incredible difference, not because of us, but because of World Vision for a lot of years. And still we support World Vision's efforts there. And because of Fritz Kling, who runs our foundation, and all the things that, if you see the documentary, 29 years, you'll see what incredible things they are doing.
But why Burma? Why?
Well, it goes back to hope. That's a country that was under a horrible military dictatorship. Burma was during, just before the Second World War, the breadbasket of Asia. They have natural resources like none other of the countries in that region of the world have. They have everything: oil, gas, water, jewels, diamonds. They've got it. Teak. But a military dictator by the name of Ne Win took the country over in 1962, and before that there was a lot of confusion. But he took it over, clamped it down, and it became a horrible military dictatorship. No education, the university would open and then close, and the people, it was against the law to meet in groups of more than 5 for years. And we saw
So what did you want to change about that country?
We wanted to change the people. And as you'll see in the documentary, we traveled up the Irrawaddy River, and our 2 guys, 2 young men, we got to talking to them on the way back, and they spoke pretty good English. And they said, you know, our parents apologized to us on what they allowed to happen to this country. There's 60 million people in Burma. So this is a big country. Mm-hmm. They apologized to us on a regular basis by saying what they were leaving us, because what they had allowed to happen in that country. And because of that, we have no hope.
So your goal was to help restore some
We're
hope.
going to do something to restore hope.
Let's take a quick look at just a clip of this documentary, and we'll continue our discussion when we come back.
Good, thank you.
This is Adrian, who was our guide for this trip the following day, our first full day there. One of the things he said was, our parents apologized to our generation for leaving us a country with no hope. And that was so crushing, so devastating to us, to think of these young people who had no hope of ever being in a better situation than what was obviously a terrible situation.
At that moment on the boat, that probably was the thing that changed us.
Yes.
You want to, how did this all begin? His comment of, we have no hope.
Mr. DeBoer, what's the most important thing one can take away from your work and the documentary in Myanmar?
Well, there's a lot of things, but you know, you can't change the world by yourself. But if you surround yourself with good people and you treat them the way you would like to be treated yourself, and together you set goals and then you let them do it, we take no credit for the really incredible things that have happened in the 30 years that we've been involved there. I mean, really. We don't take credit for that, but I take some credit for the fact that we surrounded ourselves with the right people. And I could tell you a lot more than you want to know about 30 years of being there, but that's the bottom line. Don't take any credit. You get quiet credit.
So how has that brought you a sense of satisfaction?
It has. You know, if you look again back to the book, we start out with ego and the disaster that created.
Right.
Created a lot of stuff. I mean, I built 2,000 apartments in this town. I don't own them today because I had to work through and paying things off. But ego destroyed me.
Right.
Then I had success in business once I got rid of that. And then the hard one was to come. And that was taking success to significance. I mean, it's true, you can't take it with you. And nobody, I've been looking in cemeteries, I've never seen anybody's balance sheet on their tombstone. So that can't be your goal.
Right.
But significance. I mean, I think that's the hard part. I tell people it's easy to give away money. It's easy if you've got a lot of money to go to your alma mater and have them put your name on a building. You can feel good about it, but so what? I happen to look at the other side of that and say, What are you doing with this money that you can create significance? And that's the joy in life, the quiet joy. When I get yet one other email from a fellow graduate over there who is making a big difference in his or her life as well as for the lives of others, you got to feel good about that.
So we play a little game on this program.
Okay.
It's a word game, so I like to try it out on you.
No memory, right? I'm beginning to lose that.
No memory now. Say what comes to mind when you hear these words. The first word is kindness.
Oh. Give, and you shall receive.
Evil.
Avoid it through honesty.
Love.
Give, and you will receive.
Beverage.
Don't drink too much.
Dessert.
Drink more water. That's the other one.
Dessert.
Dessert. I love it.
Music.
I enjoy music. I play piano, and that's my relaxation.
Dancing.
Lousy dancer for a lot of years. I'm getting too old and too crippled.
Beauty.
Duty?
Beauty.
Beauty. I don't know. I got over that a long time ago for myself. Enjoy it in others.
Fun.
Fun. You know, if you've got all these other things in place, life is really fun.
And the last word in this game is money.
Money. Well, I've been rich and I've been poor, and I like rich better.
I think we all say that.
That's right.
And as you said, it depends on how you use it.
Just don't put it too high in the stack.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
what we have, our children and grandchildren are fine. It all goes to our foundation to live on when we're gone. And that's such a satisfaction.
So, who is Jack DeBoer? Define yourself.
Boy, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. A guy whose name used to be important to him. It's not anymore. Probably a guy who, through his life, has earned the right to say, I did it okay.
On that note, I must say, you've been truly inspirational on many fronts. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Time flies. Good luck to you.
Thank you, too. And thank you for watching this week's edition of One on One. If you have a question or comment about the show, our email address is oneonone@kpts.org. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Thanks for watching.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, supporting KPTS and the communities it serves in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you.